Before Allah joins two hearts through nikah, He often separates the heart from emotional dependence, not to make you cold, not to make you distant, but to make you whole, because a heart that depends on people for stability will struggle in a marriage that requires faith, balance, and trust in Allah. Emotional independence is often misunderstood as becoming cold, distant, or detached. In reality, it is the opposite. It is the ability to feel deeply without losing stability. Allah does not remove tenderness from the heart. He removes the fear that says you cannot survive without someone else holding you together. A heart that is emotionally independent still loves, still hopes, still cares. But it no longer panics when someone pulls away or changes. It does not collapse when reassurance is delayed. This strength allows love to exist without desperation, which is essential before nikah. Emotional distance shuts the heart down. Emotional independence steadies it. One avoids connection, the other enters connection without fear. Allah prepares the heart not to avoid love, but to experience it without anxiety, controlling every emotion. When emotional independence grows, reactions soften. You no longer feel the urge to explain yourself endlessly or chase clarity from people. You can sit with uncertainty and remain whole. This is not numbness. It is trust replacing panic. Many think emotional independence means needing no one. In truth, it means no one replaces Allah as your emotional anchor. People become companions, not lifelines. This shift restores balance in every relationship. Allah teaches emotional independence by allowing silence, by allowing unanswered messages, by allowing distance. Not to hurt you, but to show you that your peace does not disappear when people are absent. A dependent heart reads distance as rejection. An independent heart reads it as space. Space no longer threatens identity or worth. The heart remains intact even when connection fluctuates. Emotional independence allows you to listen without overreacting. You can hear difficult words without becoming defensive or shattered. This emotional maturity protects marriage from constant emotional turbulence. Without independence, love becomes fear-based. Every disagreement feels like abandonment. Every change feels like loss. Allah removes this fragility before nikah so marriage does not become emotionally exhausting. Independence teaches the heart to self-regulate. You learn how to calm yourself instead of needing others to constantly soothe you. This skill is learned through prayer, reflection, and patience. A heart that can regulate itself does not weaponize emotions. It does not use silence, tears, or withdrawal to gain control. This emotional discipline is critical for a healthy nikah. Emotional independence also sharpens discernment. You no longer confuse attention with affection. You recognize sincerity without clinging to validation. This clarity protects you from unhealthy attachments. Allah allows emotional independence to develop so you do not lose yourself in love. You remain grounded in values, faith, and self-respect. Love adds to you instead of consuming you. When independence grows, emotional reactions slow down. You pause before responding. That pause is where wisdom enters. Marriage needs this pause to survive conflict without damage. Emotional independence does not remove vulnerability. It removes fear of vulnerability. You can open your heart without demanding guarantees. This creates authentic connection instead of controlled attachment. A heart anchored in Allah does not chase people to feel secure. It returns to dua. It returns to remembrance. This spiritual grounding keeps emotions from spiraling. Allah teaches emotional independence gradually, through waiting, through disappointment, through learning that you survived moments you thought you wouldn't. Each survival builds confidence in Allah's care. Independence changes how you love. Love becomes choice instead of need. You stay because you want to, not because you are afraid to be alone. This choice is what gives love dignity. When emotional independence is present, you do not fear being misunderstood. You trust Allah with interpretation. You do not over-explain yourself to earn peace. This independence makes room for mercy. You stop demanding perfection from people. You accept human limitation without internal chaos. This acceptance protects marriage from unrealistic expectations. Allah prepares emotional independence before nikah, so love can be healthy, not heavy. So closeness can feel safe, not suffocating. So union can be peaceful, not pressured. This is why emotional independence is not emotional distance. It is emotional stability. And stability is the foundation Allah lays before bringing two hearts together in nikah. Emotional dependence often feels like closeness in the beginning. You feel connected, needed, and deeply involved in each other's emotional world. But beneath that closeness is pressure. When one person becomes the source of emotional stability, love quietly turns into responsibility rather than companionship. Dependence places weight on marriage that it was never meant to carry. A spouse becomes expected to heal wounds, calm fears, and provide constant reassurance. No human heart can sustain that role without becoming overwhelmed. Allah removes this dependence before nikah to protect both partners. When dependence exists, disagreements feel dangerous. A simple misunderstanding triggers fear of loss. Emotions escalate quickly because the heart believes safety is at risk. This intensity makes conflict exhausting instead of productive. Dependence also blurs boundaries. You may begin to overgive emotionally, neglecting your own needs to preserve connection. Over time, this imbalance creates resentment. Allah prepares the heart to stand independently so love can be mutual, not one-sided. In dependent relationships, communication becomes reactive. You speak from fear instead of clarity. Words are chosen to secure reassurance rather than express truth. This prevents honest dialogue and slowly erodes trust. Marriage under emotional dependence often becomes fragile. When one person is tired, distant, or struggling, the entire emotional structure collapses. Allah strengthens the individual first, so marriage remains stable even during personal struggles. Dependence turns normal human flaws into threats. A delayed response, a change in tone, or a moment of silence becomes emotionally loaded. This constant vigilance drains the heart and creates unnecessary tension. Allah removes dependence because it confuses love with survival. Love is meant to be chosen freely. Survival-driven attachment makes love feel urgent and heavy. Marriage needs space to breathe, not fear to function. Emotional dependence also creates unrealistic expectations. You expect your spouse to always understand you, always be available, and always meet your emotional needs. When this does not happen, disappointment grows. Pressure in marriage does not always show as conflict. Sometimes it shows as emotional fatigue. One partner feels responsible for keeping the other emotionally stable, which slowly drains affection. Dependence can also lead to emotional control. Without realizing it, you may use emotions to secure closeness. Tears, withdrawal, or over-communication become tools instead of expressions. Allah removes this pattern to preserve sincerity. Marriage under dependence struggles during trials. Stressful seasons amplify insecurity. Instead of facing challenges together, each person feels overwhelmed by the other's emotional needs. Allah wants marriage to be a place of tranquility, not emotional survival. That tranquility is impossible when fear of loss governs reactions. Independence removes fear so peace can enter. Dependence often hides behind the idea of romance, but romance without emotional stability becomes exhausting. Allah prepares the heart to enjoy closeness without clinging to it. When dependence exists, personal growth slows. You fear change, because it may disrupt the relationship. Allah removes this fear so both partners can grow individually without threatening the union. Dependence also weakens trust in Allah. You begin to rely more on people for emotional security than on divine support. Allah corrects this imbalance before nikah. Emotional independence allows marriage to function during distance, stress, or uncertainty. You do not fall apart when things are not perfect. This resilience is essential for long-term stability. When Allah removes dependence, love becomes lighter. You enjoy presence without fearing absence. This freedom strengthens connection instead of weakening it. Marriage built on independence allows each person to bring peace rather than demand it. Two stable hearts create sakinah together. This is why Allah addresses emotional dependence before nikah, not to remove love, but to remove pressure, because love survives best when it is chosen, not needed. Before nikah, Allah often places you in seasons where comfort from people is limited, not to isolate you, but to teach you how to return to yourself without panic. Self-soothing is not emotional withdrawal. It is learning how to calm the heart without needing immediate reassurance from others. When Allah teaches self-soothing, emotions still rise, but they no longer take control. You feel sadness without spiraling. You feel longing without desperation. This emotional regulation is a form of maturity that protects marriage from constant emotional urgency. Self-soothing begins when you learn to pause instead of react. Instead of sending messages, explaining yourself, or seeking instant comfort, you sit with your emotions. This sitting is uncomfortable at first, but it builds strength the heart did not know it had. Allah often teaches this through waiting. Waiting for answers, waiting for clarity, waiting for relief. In that waiting, the heart discovers that it can endure discomfort without collapsing. This endurance becomes emotional stability. Prayer becomes a primary source of comfort during this phase. You turn to Allah before turning to people. Not because people are wrong, but because Allah is the true source of peace. This shift anchors emotions spiritually instead of socially. Self-soothing also develops through silence. Silence forces you to listen inwardly. You begin to notice your thoughts, your fears, and your patterns. Awareness replaces reaction, and awareness creates choice. As self-soothing grows, emotional waves become shorter. You recover faster from disappointment. You do not dwell in pain as long as before. This recovery is not numbness. It is resilience. Allah teaches you that emotions are temporary. Feelings rise and fall, but the heart remains. This realization reduces fear of emotional pain. You stop seeing discomfort as something to escape at all costs. Self-soothing strengthens patience. You learn that you do not need immediate resolution to feel okay. This patience is essential in marriage, where not every issue can be solved instantly. Through self-soothing, you stop outsourcing emotional responsibility. You no longer expect others to regulate your mood. This independence allows love to exist without emotional burden. Allah also teaches self-soothing through disappointment. When things do not go as hoped, you learn to grieve without bitterness. You process emotions instead of suppressing them or projecting them onto others. As self-soothing develops, communication improves. You speak from clarity rather than emotion. Conversations become calmer because emotions have already been processed internally. Self-soothing creates emotional dignity. You do not chase reassurance. You do not beg for understanding. You trust that clarity will come in time. This dignity strengthens self-respect. Allah prepares the heart to self-soothe, so marriage does not become a constant emotional repair job. Two people can support each other without becoming each other's emotional lifeline. Self-soothing also deepens reliance on Allah. You experience firsthand that remembrance, dua, and patience can calm the heart. This experience builds trust that carries into marriage. As self-soothing becomes natural, fear loses its grip. You no longer fear being alone with your thoughts. You can sit with yourself without discomfort. Allah allows moments of loneliness, so the heart learns self-connection. Once connected internally, external connection becomes healthier and more balanced. Self-soothing changes how you experience love. Love becomes companionship rather than emotional rescue. This shift prepares you for a peaceful nikah. When Allah teaches self-soothing, He is not hardening the heart, He is strengthening it. This strength ensures that marriage becomes a place of peace, not emotional dependence. This is why Allah teaches you to self-soothe before He pairs you, so that when love enters your life, it adds to your peace instead of becoming the source of it. Allah often separates you from what your heart clings to, not because it is always wrong, but because attachment has grown louder than trust. When something becomes the source of your emotional safety, Allah gently pulls it away so you can remember where safety truly comes from. This separation is not punishment, it is correction wrapped in mercy. Attachment feels comforting because it gives the heart something tangible to hold. But when the heart holds too tightly, it forgets Allah's role as the sustainer. Separation restores balance. It teaches the heart that reliance belongs to Allah, not to people, situations, or outcomes. Allah separates you so the heart can distinguish between love and dependence. Love allows space. Dependence fears it. When separation happens, the heart is forced to confront its fear. In that confrontation, growth begins. Often, Allah removes what you are attached to quietly. There is no dramatic ending, just distance, silence, or change. This subtlety prevents shock, but it still teaches the lesson deeply. The heart learns gradually that it can survive without constant emotional supply. Separation reveals how much emotional weight you placed on something. When it is gone, you feel the imbalance clearly. This awareness is painful, but necessary. Without it, attachment would continue unnoticed and unhealed. Allah also separates you to protect your future marriage. A heart that carries unresolved attachment cannot fully commit. Past emotional ties create comparison, fear, and hesitation. Separation clears the heart so it can love without shadows. During separation, the heart often feels exposed. There is nothing to distract it from itself. This exposure is uncomfortable, but it allows healing to begin. The heart learns to soothe itself instead of reaching outward. Separation teaches the heart to find stability within, not outside. You begin to build routines, faith, and self-understanding that do not depend on another person's presence. This stability becomes emotional independence. Allah separates you from attachment, so your love does not become idolatry. When something occupies the space that belongs to Allah, the heart suffers. Separation restores that space to its rightful owner. Many people interpret separation as loss. In reality, it is refinement. Allah removes what the heart leans on too heavily so it can lean on Him properly. This shift brings long-term peace, even if it hurts in the moment. Separation also humbles the heart. You realize how little control you truly had. This humility softens the soul and opens it to divine guidance instead of personal insistence. Through separation, the heart learns that feelings do not define destiny. Just because something felt strong does not mean it was meant to stay. This realization brings emotional maturity. Allah allows separation to break emotional illusions. The heart often romanticizes attachment, confusing intensity with meaning. Distance brings clarity. You see things as they are, not as fear imagined them. As attachment loosens, Emotional freedom grows. You stop obsessing, you stop replaying, you begin to breathe again. This freedom is the foundation of healthy love. Separation teaches patience without clinging. You learn to wait without chasing. This skill is essential in marriage, where not every need can be met instantly. Allah separates you, so you learn that your worth is not tied to being chosen, needed, or desired by someone else. Your worth becomes rooted in being seen by Allah. Separation also prepares you to choose wisely. Without emotional fog, you can recognize compatibility, values, and character more clearly. This clarity protects Nikah. When attachment fades, love becomes lighter. You no longer need someone to fill emotional gaps. You are full enough to share, not drain. Allah separates you not to empty your heart, but to cleanse it. What remains is a heart capable of loving freely, without fear or dependence. This is why Allah separates you from what you attach to, because a heart that relies on Him first is the only heart ready for a marriage that brings peace, not pressure. Emotional independence safeguards your deen by ensuring that faith is not compromised for emotional comfort. When the heart is stable on its own, it does not bargain its values for closeness. Love no longer pressures you to cross lines you once respected. This stability becomes a shield for Iman inside marriage. A dependent heart is easily swayed. It fears loss so deeply that it justifies small compromises. Over time, those compromises grow. Allah builds emotional independence, so you do not trade obedience for approval or silence for peace. When emotional independence is present, boundaries feel natural, not forced. You do not need to constantly defend your principles. You live them calmly. This calm consistency protects the deen without creating conflict. Marriage tests faith in subtle ways. Fatigue, stress, and disagreement can weaken resolve. An emotionally independent heart does not abandon values during these moments. It remains anchored even when emotions fluctuate. Independence prevents the spouse from becoming the source of validation. When validation comes from Allah, love does not compete with faith. This balance allows affection to grow without eroding spiritual discipline. A heart that stands firm emotionally is less reactive. It does not respond to pressure by compromising prayer, modesty, or ethics. Emotional steadiness supports spiritual steadiness. Allah strengthens emotional independence, so guilt cannot be weaponized. A dependent heart is vulnerable to manipulation through emotion. Independence preserves sincerity and free choice. When independence exists, disagreements do not threaten Iman. You can disagree without resentment. You can stand your ground without hostility. This maturity keeps the relationship halal in conduct and intention. Emotional independence also prevents spiritual burnout. When you are not emotionally drained by fear or insecurity, worship remains sincere. Prayer does not become a casualty of emotional chaos. Marriage inevitably brings moments of imbalance. One partner may struggle while the other is strong. Emotional independence ensures that one person's weakness does not pull the other away from Allah. Independence allows accountability without fear. You can remind each other of Allah gently because reminders are not perceived as threats. Faith becomes a shared value, not a control tool. A heart rooted in Allah does not follow emotions blindly. Feelings are acknowledged, but decisions are guided by faith. This discernment protects long-term spiritual health. Emotional independence also protects against resentment toward Allah. When expectations are realistic, disappointment does not turn into spiritual bitterness. Trust remains intact. Allah prepares this independence so love does not replace reliance on Him. Marriage becomes a means of support, not substitution. This preserves Tawheed at the emotional level. When independence is present, you are less likely to hide sins to preserve harmony. You value Allah's pleasure over temporary comfort. This honesty strengthens Iman. Independence prevents spiritual comparison. You do not measure your deen against your spouse's mood or approval. Your relationship with Allah remains personal and consistent. Emotional independence also allows growth. You can change, repent, and improve without fearing rejection. This freedom supports spiritual development within marriage. When trials come, independence keeps you from blaming faith. You do not question Allah because of relational stress. You turn toward Him instead. Allah protects the deen by strengthening the heart first. A stable heart holds faith firmly, even during emotional storms. This is why emotional independence is essential before Nikah. It ensures that love enhances faith instead of testing it, and that marriage becomes a place where deen is protected, not pressured. When you stop needing someone to feel whole, love changes its nature. It becomes lighter, calmer, and more sincere. You are no longer reaching out from emptiness, but sharing from fullness. Allah prepares the heart for this kind of love, so marriage can be a gift, not a requirement for emotional survival. Needing creates urgency. It makes the heart anxious about being chosen, kept, or understood. Pure love does not rush or pressure. When need fades, patience enters. You allow love to grow naturally instead of forcing connection out of fear. A heart that does not need love to survive can love without control. You do not monitor every word or reaction. You give space without panic. This freedom allows trust to grow instead of suspicion. Pure love does not demand constant reassurance. When emotional independence is present, silence does not threaten security. You remain steady even when reassurance is delayed. This steadiness makes love feel safe rather than heavy. When you stop needing, you stop bargaining emotionally. You do not lower standards to avoid loneliness. You do not accept mistreatment to preserve attachment. Love becomes aligned with dignity and self-respect. Allah removes emotional need, so love is no longer driven by fear of abandonment. Fear contaminates affection. It turns closeness into clinging. Without fear, love breathes and deepens naturally. A heart that loves purely can listen without defensiveness. It does not hear disagreement as rejection. This openness creates emotional intimacy without volatility. Pure love allows choice. You stay because you want to, not because you feel you cannot survive without the relationship. This choice gives love sincerity instead of dependency. When need is gone, emotional reactions soften. Jealousy loses intensity. Possessiveness fades. You trust more because you are not afraid of losing yourself. Allah prepares this purity so marriage does not feel like emotional captivity. Two people walk together freely, not bound by fear. This freedom is what creates genuine closeness. Pure love also respects individuality. You do not feel threatened by your spouse's independence. You celebrate it. This mutual respect strengthens connection instead of weakening it. When you stop needing, communication becomes honest. You speak truthfully without fear of losing affection. This honesty builds trust and prevents resentment. Love without need is patient with growth. You allow mistakes without panic. You allow change without fear. This patience sustains long-term harmony. Allah removes need, so love is no longer transactional. You do not give to receive reassurance. You give because it aligns with your values. This sincerity brings barakah. Pure love also survives hardship better. When challenges arise, you face them together without emotional collapse. Independence provides resilience. When you stop needing, love stops being about filling gaps. It becomes about companionship, mercy, and shared purpose. This is the kind of love Allah blesses. A heart that loves purely does not lose itself in the relationship. It remains connected to Allah, identity, and values. This balance prevents emotional exhaustion. Allah prepares you for this love before nikah. So marriage does not become an emotional rescue mission. It becomes a partnership built on strength, not need. Pure love is calm even when emotions rise. It does not threaten. It reassures without control. This calm is the sign of emotional maturity. When you stop needing, love becomes an act of generosity rather than desperation. You give from stability, not fear. This is why Allah removes need before nikah, so that when love arrives, it is pure, dignified, and capable of lasting without draining the heart.